so glad to have you here today. I think I'll start out with a soft question, which is, can you tell us a bit of who you are, what your organization does, and then your role at the organization?
You bet. So great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm Shane Evans. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at Gong. Before we dive into Gong, maybe a little bit about me. I live in Utah and been there for most of my life. I'm a huge outdoor enthusiast. I've got 4 kids and we spend a lot of time in the outdoors. One of the fun things for me this past summer, I brought my whole leadership team down to a place called Lake Powell, and we spent 4 days on a boat out in the middle of a lake. Great bonding opportunity,
Okay.
But it's fun to take advantage of these outdoor situations and get people sequestered. We get a chance to bond and develop, and so that's one of my passions outside of work, which I was able to bring to the office this year with my team, which was a lot of fun.
Amazing.
Yeah, Gong, it's a revenue intelligence company. We've been on an incredible journey where we help organizations gather all sorts of data and interactions, and then bring that together with all of the other performance data, account, contact, company data, and do what we can to help organizations become more productive, and then use that productivity to be more predictable. And so there's a lot of incredible use cases right now. We're helping organizations figure out how they become more intentional and intelligent. There's a lot of talk right now about trying to be an AI company and be AI ready. We'll talk a lot about this today, but there's a starting point where there's a foundational element of just getting your arms around your data and making sure that you can actually understand what's happening before you try and get really predictable and intentional about how you can run your business more effectively. So it's a great time to be in tech, especially if you're at the crossroads of what's happening around AI and how transformation is being driven. So a lot of exciting things happening for us right now at Gong.
So as you think about your company and positioning the organization as being future ready, there's balances that you have to take on. So specifically looking at your business as usual investments versus being future focused for your projects, how do you strike that balance?
So future ready is really challenging because most of us step into a company where we're inheriting what has been done in the past. And so you're already starting from a point that maybe you're challenged or things aren't going exactly the way that you want them to. So one of the things that we're doing right now to try and help companies become future ready is really around data. And you think about this, a lot of companies feel like they already have plenty of data that they aren't able to use. But if we look at most of the databases or CRM systems that companies are using, we estimate that they contain about 1% of the data that is required. And I'll explain that a little bit more. Let's say that you and I are on a sales call. I'm trying to sell to you. We have a 30-minute meeting, and we're going to exchange about 5,000 to 6,000 words. After that meeting, I'm expected to go back and manually update the CRM. I'm going to put in, on average, about 50 to 60 words, which is about 1% of what actually transpired between us. Now, the other problem is if you look at the data that I'm putting in there, it typically boils down to just had a great meeting, the deal's going to close on the last day of the quarter, they love us. Because customer-facing folks don't typically want to put in the reality. They don't want to look bad for their manager. They don't want to cause any doubt. And so the data that goes in there is not really substance-based. It's really subjective. It's based on what they want you to hear. Versus if we actually are able to capture all of that interaction, if we capture all of the emails, all of the Slack messages, all the other phone calls that have taken place, now we have a complete picture. And so as we think about being future ready, it really starts with making sure that we're capturing the data. All the work that's being done right now to try and make our lives easier around AI, it's going to require that we have the right data that will power the outcomes, the recommendations, the guidance that we're going to need. And so whenever I sit down and talk with leaders about making sure that you're future ready, it really starts with ensuring that you're actually able to capture all of the data that is out there. And as we go into this new AI economy, we believe that a lot of the differentiation will be based on how companies are leveraging the data that they have. It's really hard to show up and do things uniquely the way that different solutions are being commoditized and the rate at which technology is being developed. And so it's really the companies that harness their data and are able to use that in a way that allows them to be different.
Makes sense. So maybe let's zoom out to the industry. So when you think about the tech industry in general, what would you say are the biggest challenges that the industry is facing, and how do you see AI and specifically Sales Navigator helping to address those challenges?
Yeah, great question. So if we look at the tech industry as a whole, and what's interesting is that I think that this applies to many other industries as well. You take telecommunications, manufacturing, healthcare, financial services. The game has changed for all of us. If we go back 12, 18 months ago, the game was all about growth at all costs. And so if you faced a challenge or an obstacle, it was simply, let's go throw more resources at the problem, hire more bodies, try and get more folks in that can help get your message out there. The game shifted and it became less about growth and more about efficiency. That's where metrics like a rule of 40 became a really North Star for a lot of companies on how healthy they are. And so now what we're having to do as leaders is figure out how we adjust to that. We have to get more efficient, which means we have to be more productive. We have to be more predictable. And so as we think about how tools like even Sales Navigator can help in that, how do you make sure that you're reaching out to the right people at the right time? If you're trying to work with an organization, you can't just cold call them or try and send them a blind email. You've got to find unique ways to reach those folks. And so tools like Sales Navigator actually allow you to get a view into who's at that company, what is their role, how long have they been there, what's important to them. I've been fascinated to watch some of our best customer-facing folks actually use that data in a way that's not just about trying to find out what's their title, but what's important to them. And you're going deeper on what are their personal interests, what do they do in their spare time, how can they make an emotional connection with that individual. Those are all pieces that help encourage and actually drive up a response rate, even on an outbound email that's coming out. But then as you start to build that relationship, how do you navigate across that company? The other part of our game that has changed, especially in tech, it used to be that one or two people could make a decision and you could get an opportunity closed out fairly quickly. Now you've got committees, you've got finance, and so you really have to look at the landscape of that organization and understand who are the 4 to 5 individuals that I'm going to need to connect with in order to actually get a deal done. And even though we live in a unique environment with being more remote-based, the ability to connect with those folks, like it's very rare that a buyer is going to spend money with a company before they really have a relationship and understand that person on the other side is actually going to make sure that they are successful. And keep in mind, a lot of times we're making decisions, we're making, in some cases, career-limiting decisions or career-advancing decisions. And so when you understand that as a customer-facing professional, it allows you to be more effective. And obviously at Gong, our teams are huge fans of what LinkedIn puts out there, especially with Sales Navigator, and the ability to get access to that information makes us way more effective than we were previously.
So when you think about Sales Navigator, how has that tool helped you as you think about your approach to growth?
So let me start with the CRO example. Like when I'm going into a deal review and I'm trying to figure out where the gaps might be and how I can help the team improve, one of the areas that I'm super passionate about is executive to executive alignment. And so part of our deal review is looking at, are we connected with the right people? I wish I could say that every engagement we launch is flawless and that it goes perfectly. It's all rainbows and butterflies and everyone has these warm fuzzies, but technology is messy. And so there's going to be challenges that we run into. What I find is if I have a relationship exec to exec, they then know who to call or who to reach out to when they need an extra set of eyes or a little bit of a push on either side. And the same goes the other way. We may be looking to integrate to a certain system or application. Where I find a lot of value in Sales Navigator is I can actually go in and figure out, do I know this individual? Or do I know any other folks that can help me connect with this individual? And so then as I go into the deal review, I can actually come prepared with, hey team, here's a few people that I have access to or a few paths or avenues that I feel like I can help. And so from my perspective, I use personally Sales Navigator a lot for the exec to exec relationship building in these key deals that we're involved in. The team uses it for early stage pipe creation, for the advancement, and then as we get in later stage, it's making sure that we're connected with enough people and the right people that will allow us to get those deals the best chance of closing in the time that we want them to close in.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Shane. I've really appreciated the conversation and talking about how you're getting your organization and yourself ready to be future ready. That is all the time that we have for today, folks. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope that you all will be really focused as well on how you're going to be future ready. Thank you.